was one of gloom and doom. At that time, I made a bold, outrageous, and definitely a contrarian forecast. Hi, good morning everyone. Teng Boo again from Capital Dynamics. Hope you had a good week and hope the coming week will be even better. Suddenly in the last few weeks, our KLCI came alive. It sprang towards 1,800 points. Well, it seems like even before the year of the fiery horse has started, you can see the horse starting to gallop. So the question is, for the rest of the year, will the horse lose steam? Or will this fiery horse be even more energized as the year unfolds? Let me just give you an update. Now, way back in 2023, on 5th November 2023, in the 2023 Investor Day of iCapital.biz at the KLCI. Remember, bring yourself back to 2023, the atmosphere, the mood in the country was one of gloom and doom. At that time, I made a bold, outrageous, and definitely a contrarian forecast. Don't forget, 2023, Malaysia was just beginning to heal. First, from a very severe pandemic, and then from unprecedented political turmoil created by Malaysia's 7th Prime Minister. Malaysia had 4 Prime Ministers in 4 years, and Anwar Ibrahim just scraping to be the country's 10th Prime Minister. Malaysian economy, the local economy was weak, while the global economy was faced with an inflation crisis. For us investors on the KLCI, really, what was there to look forward to? There was so much bearishness, there was so much concern, so many concerns, so many worries. So late on a Sunday afternoon, I think it was about 5 o'clock, physically exhausted after a very hectic 2-day investor day. In my talk, I told the crowd that I am bullish on the KLCI and Malaysia, that I am positive and bullish on KLCI and the Malaysian economy for the first time since 2012, since 2013. That is a major change in the way I look at things. For those of the people who follow me consistently, they knew that what I said in November 2023 was a major departure. At the time, the KLCI was at a miserable 1,490 points. In that 90-minute talk, I gave my reasons, all given with transparency, without fear, without favor, with objectivity. I gave my reasons for turning bullish. You can see the crowd. Maybe it was because it was already 5+ on a Sunday afternoon. There was no air of excitement. There was no cheer. 2.5 years later, and with the KLCI 300 more points higher than what it was, the Malaysian economy has certainly moved on. Investors on Bursa Malaysia are not so dismayed. The ringgit has regained some of its losses. And guess what? Anwar is still Malaysia's Prime Minister. So is this bull market, is the KLCI bull market that I precisely saw in 2023, is it over? You can see from the chart, if those of you who understand some technical analysis, some chart patterns, when the index rose above 1,700 points just recently, that was, in terms of technical analysis, a bullish breakthrough, which means it should be heading higher. But is that all there is to it? A quick recapitulation. 3rd November 2023, KLCI was 1,449 points. My unambiguous advice was buy. By August 2024, the KLCI reached 1,684 points, the highest after the 2023 Investor Day. In the 2024 Investor Day on 25th October, when the index was at about 1,618 points, I said, hold on. The market has gone up a bit too much. There's a correction coming. By April 2025, the KLCI fell below 1,400 points. Then in last year's Investor Day, on the 10th of November 2025, in all Investor Days, they're all on Sundays, when the index was at 1,627 points, I said, look, correction over, time to invest. My bullish target is still intact. This year, in the last 2-3 weeks, when I'm doing nationwide roadshows, I told the audience that my bullish outlook remains the same. This is what it looks like. The first red arrow, 2023, it touched at the peak of that particular period. Then the next is 2024 Investor Day, it plunged after that. Then 2025 Investor Day, I reiterated my bullishness. So based on various political and economic reasons, both local and global, I explain why I remain bullish for Malaysia and the KL stock market. First is the semiconductor industry. As I've explained many times before, it is the backbone of our economy, and its importance is not declining. The importance of semiconductor to the Malaysian economy is actually increasing. As a percentage of total exports, semiconductors now form about 29% of Malaysia's total exports, and I can expect that percentage to increase even further. Now, before I forget, since we're talking about semiconductor, you may be wondering what happened to our iCapital semiconductor series. It is still on, it's not stopped, it's not been disrupted, it's not discontinued. We're just taking a break because we have been talking about semiconductor continuously for many weeks. And I'm sure some are pretty tired of listening to semiconductor, so we thought, well, let's give everybody a break and we will resume our special series in future. Or, as some of you have suggested, maybe we might break our YouTube channel into 2 different series, one just on semiconductor and another one on everything else. So this chart is interesting. It shows you global semiconductor sales globally. The line in red is in absolute amount on a monthly basis. And if you notice, towards the right hand side, my right hand side, towards 2023, the rate of semiconductor sales accelerated. It's been climbing. It's been climbing for the last 30, 40 years, but it's been at a certain angle and on a cyclical basis. But 2023, something happened. Its growth rate accelerated. If you look at the insert, the smaller chart in blue, if you notice towards the end of 2025, the chart in blue is to show you year-on-year change. The line in red is to show you absolute sales. So the year-on-year change towards the end of 2025 was supposed to have a cyclical downturn. This is, after all, it used to be a cyclical industry, 2-3 years up, 2-3 years down. But something changed. Instead of semiconductor sales declining, it actually picked up and accelerated. You probably know a major reason is due to AI. So you will, if you think carefully, or if you have not noticed, what I want to point out to you is that semiconductor industry is of critical importance to the Malaysian economy. The global economy is now driven by semiconductor. So you have an economic structure, a Malaysian economic structure that is tied directly to the global economy. That is positive because the growth that you're seeing in global semiconductor sales, it is being driven by different type of factors, different drivers from 20, 30 years ago. But I'll talk about that in a separate video. So in May 2024, under our Prime Minister, he unveiled the National Semiconductor Strategy. This policy is long overdue. The priority is correct, the policy correct, the policy priority is correct, the policy emphasis is correct. So by putting such great emphasis on developing and strengthening Malaysia's semiconductor ecosystem, the Prime Minister has made one of the best decisions. You know, I've mentioned this before, but I just like to repeat this. The fourth Prime Minister, Malaysia's fourth Prime Minister, neglected our semiconductor industry in the 80s and the 90s. As a result, Malaysia fell way behind Taiwan and Korea, very far behind. This 2024 NSS is to make sure that Malaysia does not fall further behind, or, if possible, to close the gap. And the success of the NSS will at the same time allow Malaysia to overcome the middle income trap. As I mentioned this before, and I'd like to repeat this, just based on this strategy alone, Prime Minister Anwar has my 100% support. And more importantly, deserves the support of all Malaysians, because this is a game-changing strategy. We do not want to wake up 20, 30 years later and see Malaysia just like the Philippine economies. I would like to repeat this chart. The line in blue is Malaysia's GDP per capita, about 12,000 US dollars. Below that is Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines. Those three economies do not have a semiconductor industry. Thailand a little bit, Philippines a little bit, Indonesia last year, they just announced a national semiconductor strategy. So if you imagine, if Lim Chong Yu in 1972 did not successfully attract the global E&E companies to Penang, we, meaning Malaysia, the Malaysian economy will be a lot poorer. Probably we will still be stuck with a lot of labor-intensive, low-skill, low-wage industries like what you see in Philippines and Indonesia. That is sad. That would have been sad. And Malaysian women, like Indonesian women and Filipino women, will probably have to go overseas to be domestic made. The other thing is the auto industry. There's been structural changes that you may not have noticed, because we see Proton on the road everywhere, every day. But Proton shut its Shalam plant and then moved to Tanjung Malim. And Tanjung Malim is going to be a very critical component of Malaysia's auto industry, because it will be a central hub for Proton to make new launches, really new launches, new models, not those where you just change the dashboard, you just change the design of this and that, and then you call it a new model like what the old Proton used to do, or like what Perodua is doing. No. The Proton saga that we have now is completely new. The engine is new, everything is new. So the Tanjung Malim plant allows Proton to do that. More importantly, it allows Proton to produce and launch electric vehicles. The other crucial change in Proton, which many of you have not realized or do not know, is that, you know, Proton used to be in collaboration, supposed to be in collaboration with Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi in those decades did nothing for Proton. Mitsubishi hardly transferred any technology to Proton. The same thing with Perodua now. So what happened? 2009, Volkswagen wanted to come into Proton. The fourth Prime Minister objected. Luckily, in 2017, Najib allowed Geely to collaborate with Proton. That was not just a savior for Proton, but because Geely now is in Proton, it's been only about 7-8 years. The involvement of Geely into Proton is a game changer, not just for Proton, it's a game changer for the Malaysian auto industry. Mitsubishi globally doesn't have electric vehicles. So if you have Proton still under a dinosaur automaker, Proton in Malaysia would have no EVs. And you'll be forever doomed to the Malaysian market. You'll be out of step with what is happening globally. So now with Geely is very strong in traditional and electric vehicles, which is why Proton can launch the E-MAS 5 and E-MAS 7. Both are completely electric vehicles from the Tanjung Malim plant. With that, Proton can export. EV is the trend. There's no reversing. It's a question of how fast or how slow is the adoption. So Proton is in an excellent position now to be able to export its EVs, which under the old Proton, it was totally incapable of. With that, Malaysia's auto industry need not be constrained by just the Malaysian domestic market. That is a game changer. And the other thing is the reduction in foreign workers. 1990, we had 200,000 foreign workers. By the time the fourth Prime Minister ended his rule in end of 2003, there were nearly 1.4 million low-skilled, low-wage foreign workers in Malaysia, making up 13-14% of Malaysia's workforce. That allowed Malaysian enterprises, Malaysian businesses to be addicted to low-value, low-skill, low-wage type of businesses, which is why we are trapped at the middle income level. But what is happening now? Last year, foreign workers, those which are legal and active, fell by about 300,000 workers, from 2.45 million to 2.13 million. That is an excellent start. I assume that it will continue, which I think it will. It is an excellent start for Malaysia's economy to finally move up and get away from the wrong addiction. So, externally, Malaysia faces a lot of challenges, stresses, uncertainties, but at the same time, also opportunities arising from fierce geopolitics. So far, especially in the last 3 years when the current Prime Minister took over, Malaysia has navigated this fluid global backdrop very well. The government has been able to minimize risk, prevent further downside, and yet position Malaysia to allow Malaysia to gain from the new opportunities that are unfolding. So, first thing is, like I said, the emphasis on the semiconductor industry. The government wants to make sure that our graduates would have a high percentage of our graduates will find jobs that they are suited to. The number of foreign workers is aimed to drop from 15 to 10% by 2030. The concept is to not just made in Malaysia, but made by Malaysia, which is part of the national semiconductor strategy. That whole new idea in it is to allow semiconductors to be made by Malaysia. There's new direction in our foreign policy. We are collaborating a lot more with China. The king has gone to Russia twice. We are having closer relationships with Turkey. It's a Muslim country that's pretty high up in science and technology. We're getting close to BRICS and selected ASEAN countries, particularly Indonesia, Singapore. And we don't bother to waste our time with irritant countries like the Philippines. The fiscal reforms, we have gone step by step. Budget deficit as a percentage of GDP has been reduced. Now, what is remarkable about the Anwar's government, which many Malaysians have not given them the credit, the government has been able to reduce subsidies, increase SST, float chicken and egg prices, all of this without ordinary Malaysians resorting to protest riots, unlike what you saw in countries like Iran, for example. So Malaysia is able to reform its fiscal spending, its revenue sources, in a very stable and peaceful manner. That is a remarkable achievement. Our budget deficit should be about 3% of GDP. Just to give you context, America's budget deficit is about 6 to 7% of GDP. And a few other things. I'm just giving you tidbits here and there. I don't want to bore you. For example, the government has now launched a program to help Malaysians replace vehicles that are over 20 years old. I think this is long overdue. Well, I hope that the Malaysian will take it up, because the government is giving a grant of 4,000 ringgit. This will be good for the country as a whole. A few days ago, the government launched the dashboard on the implementation status of matters under the 1963 Malaysia Agreement. This portal is to allow the Malaysian public to monitor the latest developments in the implementation of the 1963 Malaysia Agreement. This, I think, is useful because it will make the government a lot more transparent and more accountable. The public will be able to look at the details related to MA63, the background related to this agreement, and the status of the negotiations under the 1963 Malaysia Agreement. These are things which are positive. You may see them as isolated, small steps, but I notice there are more and more coming out. And when you put them all together, we should have a better Malaysian economy and a better society. The Major General has been charged for corruption. He is the third very high-ranking military officer to be charged for corruption. I don't remember ever, I am going to be 72 soon, I don't ever remember in Malaysia's history where so many corruption charges have been made against so many senior people. This is, can I say, a breath of fresh air? And it's not just in one area. The Director General and the Deputy Director General of the Department of Environment has been detained to assist investigations linking to certain malpractices, corruption. So I cannot give you a whole list because there are more, but I can see a new start. Maybe this is the reform that we have been waiting for. Only thing we can do is to welcome it and to make sure that the government doesn't lose momentum and take this anti-corruption campaign all the way through. There's so many sectors and a start has been made. I think this is something that we should all be very supportive of. Somewhere in Malaysia today, there's political stability, there's social stability, there's economic stability. There are plenty of jobs. Wages have gone up. Cost of living pressure is manageable. Well, don't just compare yourself locally. I mean, I travel a lot, I read a lot, and cost of living pressure, even in a country, in an affluent country like Singapore, is actually worse than in Malaysia. I have friends, I talk to people there, and these are people not your B40 or your M40, these are the top 5%. They are complaining that cost of living in Singapore is becoming unbearable. There's reduction of foreign workers. Foreign policy is going in the correct direction. Do you know that UTM and Peking University, one of the best universities in the world, have formed a collaboration in 3 engineering areas? Peking University, I haven't heard of this before in Malaysian history. And there's a mini corruption drive. Economic policies are better. The national semiconductor strategy is number 1. Signs of reforms are increasing. And the domestic political situation, the interruptions, I think are manageable because within the opposition themselves, there's disunity. So somewhere in Malaysia today is not bad, you know. In 2023, I had to pull up a lot of courage, double check, triple check my analysis, and make sure that my optimism was not misplaced. Now in 2026 January, I am right. I feel that I've been proven right. And I think we, meaning Malaysia, is setting the foundation, the stage for better days. Do not disrupt this journey because it is so easy. I think 1, 2, 3 years later, you see Malaysia should be a lot better than what it is now. So do not unnecessarily disrupt this very difficult journey, but extremely important journey that the whole country is undertaking. In 2023, 2024, 2025 Investor Day, my 2023 forecast was for the KLCI to reach 2,500 to 3,000 points. That forecast is still valid. In fact, just to share with you, that forecast is, I'm generally a cautious, prudent person. So you can imagine my forecast back in 2023 of 2,500 to 3,000 is pretty conservative. In 2023, I said I expect 2,500 to 3,000 in the next 3, 4, 5 years, which means by maybe 2026, 2027, 2028, or maybe 2029. And you can look from this chart of the KLCI, which is very precious. It shows you that the bull run for the KL stock market is actually in the early stages. It's just in the early phase. That may come as a surprise to you because while the mood is not as, the gloomy atmosphere is not as pervasive as back in 2023, people are still cautious and uncertain, and you don't have that upbeat, that bullish, that exciting mood yet, not yet. It's coming. So how can you stay updated on my outlook of the KL Stock Exchange? There are many ways. You can subscribe to iCapital, our newsletter. This is the newsletter. Or you can subscribe to the internet version, which is only 49 ringgit. The physical version is 99 ringgit per year. Or you can attend the AGM of iCapital Dr. Berhad. Or you can attend the Investor Day of iCapital Dr. Berhad. Or you can attend the road shows of iCapital Dr. Berhad. You can become a member of iCap Fan Club. Or you can subscribe to Capital Dynamics YouTube channel. So there are many ways. And all of them doesn't cost you a bomb. And all of them come with fact-based, proper research delivered to you without any hidden ulterior motive. Like I said, I call a spade a spade. So this is how you can do it. Keep updated. So it is the right time to buy Malaysian stocks. I think my confidence since 2023 has increased even more than 2-3 years ago. What should you invest in? Well, you should know by now. We have iCapital.biz, but for those of you who do not want to take the trouble of monitoring your own portfolio, when to buy, when to sell, what to sell, getting worried, Monday to Friday, market going up and down, and you just want decent return, whether from capital appreciation or dividend income, and let me do all the worrying and let all my white hair become even whiter, then just buy iCapital.biz. Our prospectus, IPO prospectus, is in black and white. On the right side, you can see the 2025 annual report. You can't see much of it because the annual report is also in black and white, because we minimize expenses for money that we manage on your behalf. The money inside iCapital.biz belong to you. So we make sure that we do not waste expenses unnecessarily. Unlike you can see many other annual reports or IPO prospectus full of color. Annual reports full of colors, all, some of them have got 3-4 photos of the same directors all over the annual report in color. So we don't waste money unnecessarily. Let me share with you one thing before I say bye-bye to you. One very important thing. This is the chart, a monthly chart of iCapital.biz. It's from the day it was listed in 2005 up to now recently. You can see there are a few lines here. Now, first thing is look at the blue line, the ascending lines. The three of them, that is the ascending channel. So it shows you the long-term trend of 5108 or iCap. It's going upwards. Then you see there's a red line from 2021 up to now. That is the intermediate trend. That means over the next couple of years. It is also going up, but it is going up at the accelerating rate. At the top, you see two technical indicators. MACD, a monthly indicator, which is about to turn bullish. It's on a monthly basis, so you need to wait for a while, but it is on the verge of becoming bullish. Then you have the demand index, which is the indicator in between the red line. Layered over the demand index are 4 solid green lines. One in 2009, one 2015, one in 2020, 2021, and one about now. Those solid vertical green lines coincide with the bottom of the demand index. Demand index is a technical indicator that measures the volume of a particular stock. So if you notice, the vertical green lines more or less coincide with the bottom of iCapital share price. When iCapital share price has bottomed out, that's when the demand index also has bottomed out. It's more or less at where the vertical green line is. So now we are roughly at that bottom stage. So in terms, if you don't want to be a long-term investor, like, we have an investor who invested in our fund back in 2005. At that time, he was 70 years old. 21 years later, he is still our share owner. In fact, he is now our older share owner at 91, 92 years old. He hasn't sold any share. So if you don't want to be like that so long, and you want to look at more medium-term type of timing, this chart is ideal for medium-term timing. In other words, because the MACD is about to turn bullish, the demand index is at its bottom, and the share price at the intermediate support line. So in terms of timing, more or less, it is the correct time. Don't be so obsessed with precision. Don't think that, Monday I buy that must be at the bottom, Tuesday, Wednesday must go up. No. More or less, right? Approximately is good enough. You don't have to be precisely wrong. Okay? So I hope you have understood what I've said. A few things that may come as a surprise to you, because there are some of the things are pretty positive, and it is quite hard even now, despite all the things that are happening, it's quite hard to find a Malaysian analyst or fund manager who is optimistic about Malaysia, let alone an ordinary investor. Well, I hope you find this video productive. Please share this. The more you share, the more optimistic Bursa Malaysia will be. Like it, give your comments, and if you have not subscribed, please do. Please help this channel to gain more viewers, more supporters, so that whatever message we bring to you will have more impact. With that, I hope you have a good weekend ahead. Bye-bye.